President Obama's considering a plan to free up some 800,000 guest worker visas. It's just one option that he's toying with as he weighs his next move on illegal immigration. But millions of Americans who need jobs can't get jobs. Republican strategist Sherry Jacobus says this is a really bad idea. But immigration attorney Michael Wild sees things differently. Michael, to you first. Why bring in 800,000 people to work here when you've got millions of Americans who don't have a job?
I'm a former mayor, a former federal prosecutor. I can speak to both sides of these issues. There is definitely a dichotomy in our system and our law. This country was built on the backs of legal immigrants. We have a system right now that has absorbed millions without giving them a status, and we don't have the resources to remove them. It's for our homeland security, preparedness, for our economic benefit.
Michael, you're not answering the question. No, you're not answering the question. Why bring in 800,000 other people on top of the illegals that are here already? You bring them in, you give them a work visa when millions of Americans don't have work. Why do that?
The president here, Stuart, is not bringing in 800,000 new people. All of these efforts are to reconstitute a broken system and to make sure that our labor force is robust. The greatest risk takers of this nation have been entrepreneurs or immigrants. Ultimately, they lead, I'm a second-generation immigration lawyer, to the employment of Americans. And as we roll up our sleeves and we fight a dastardly economy and ISIS internationally, and we don't have the resources to remove these people, should we not accommodate it? Should we not give driver's licenses, insurance, and make it clean?
Your turn.
Okay, Michael says that this country was built on the backs of legal immigrants, and yes, of course, but our backs being broken by the illegals, and the fact that our president is not doing anything about it, that he's bringing more in. This is in a vacuum. I can say, sure, let's see if we can give these work visas, but we're not operating in a vacuum. We're operating in the real world. We're operating where 92 million Americans are looking for work. And you're asking us to say, well, gee, it's great to have an open border. It's great to give all these other people the work visas, and let's not address the 92 million Americans who are. It's too much to ask.
Let me address that directly. Let me jump in, because I've got a beef with you on this one. There's a skill mismatch here. We don't have workers in America with the skills which are needed to fill the jobs which are available. So bring in the 800,000 that we need and help business. Your answer?
In some cases, but that's not. You cannot make that blanket statement. That does not make sense, and it doesn't wash with the American people, particularly the 92 million people who are looking for jobs. Train them so they can take these jobs.
We represent a famous chef, John Jorts. There is a lack of talent internationally. And when we find the right people, whether they were born here, they were born here by no God's act or the grace of their own as children, we ought to roll up our sleeves and get that labor force culled up. This world is getting smaller. Our time for debating these issues in all truth is getting tiresome as a silence in Washington is becoming...
Absolutely not. The time to debate these issues are now, and the American people want something done. They want to stop the flow of illegals first. And Frank,
we're not going to remove them. Sherry, we're not going to remove them.
Please let me finish. You cannot have this argument in a vacuum. You cannot expect people to be for amnesty or getting even work visas when Washington refuses to close the borders. You have to take care of one person.
Except when you have 60,000, Sherry, I listen to you. You have 60,000 kids knocking on the door in harm's way in South America. You have a score of areas in the labor force where there is a big hole, and you have a homeland preparedness, which is preposterous. We're all parents who want to have a safe border.
That is a weak excuse for not.
Is it pure coincidence that the president considers doing this 2 months before an election? This is all about the Hispanic vote, is it?
There's so many different narratives here. This president, believe it or not, Stuart, has deported more people than any president in our history.
Is there a political angle to this 2 months before November?
If a Cuban comes from Cuba and hits dry land, they get a green card. A Haitian can be interdicted in international waters. The whole thing is political.
You know what? The American people are not going to buy any of this, and you can't expect the American people to buy into it unless you close the borders first, then start having the conversation about everything else.
You can't close the borders first. We have 20 million people here illegally.
You know what? You're wrong. Close the borders and then have the conversation. I think you'll have a lot of Americans who are willing to listen.
I do this for a living every day. You can't do one without the other.
It's an impassioned debate, is it not?
There's no excuse for not securing our borders.
It's an impassioned debate. I'm glad we had it on your world. Sherry, Michael, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. We'll let you stay, Stuart.
Thank you. I've been here 40 years. Is the